Hello, humans. Thank you for joining me. Today we are reacting to the overview of the Artemis 2 mission that NASA live streamed back in September, especially within the week Artemis potentially launching into orbit. I wanted to be as caught up as possible, but the video was just too long. I didn't feel like anyone would watch my video over an hour, so this is just part two, and let's get straight into it. So, Jeff?
All right, thanks, Judd. So let's see, at this point in the mission, the crew and the Orion spacecraft are in a high Earth orbit. They're in a 24-hour orbit. It'll take them, again, 24 hours to come back around and get ready for TLI. And so we're going to spend that 24 hours checking out the Orion spacecraft, ensuring that everything is ready to go before we actually take the crew to the moon. And the first thing we're going to do there is, as was mentioned, is this ProxOps demo, where we're going to take Orion and we're going to have Reed and Victor fly it and approach the ICPS. We're going to do that in a way that checks out the handling qualities of the Orion spacecraft. Let's see if we could cue the video, please. We've got a nice animation that'll show you.
Yeah, the ICPS, in case you're not familiar with all these acronyms he's using, the ICPS is basically the whole top part of the Artemis craft. It's got the Orion capsule, which the astronauts are in, and then it's got like some boosters, fuel, batteries, all that sort of stuff, solar panels. And it basically, the ICPS and the Orion capsule are two distinct parts. They separate from each other, and then the Orion capsule will basically turn around in place as they're orbiting the Earth. And I'm sure this video will show it. And it will basically, they're just going to be testing all the boosters, left, right, up, down, forward, backward, in proximity to the rest of the ICPS, just to make sure they can do like docking stuff and that all the systems are working for potential docking stuff.
Exactly what we're going to do there. So we'll separate from the ICPS, and the Orion spacecraft will then flip around and go nose on to ICPS, which is where our camera is for docking. And the crew will use that camera to then do a series of maneuvers to ensure that all of our ground models, all of the preparations that we've done prior to flight actually match what is going on with the spacecraft. And so they'll do a series of turns, a series of approaches and departures in order to ensure that the manual control of the vehicle is what we were expecting it to be. Of course, on Artemis 1, we did test the automated control of the vehicle, and that was very successful. This is an opportunity for us to test the crewed control and a way for us to check that out in preparation for future Artemis missions.
So if they have an automated system that can do all that, why also have a human system? Is that just for redundancy, or is that, I guess ideally the humans do everything and then the automated system is there for redundancy, if anything, but it's kind of interesting that the first Artemis was unmanned, so they had to test the automated system, and it did it flawlessly. So it would be interesting to see now, since the automated system can do it flawlessly, if the human system doesn't do it flawlessly and they make mistakes, which we're all human, we make mistakes. But point being, if the automated system doesn't make mistakes, why wouldn't they just make this an automated? I guess they might, this is a test after all. So this is all a test flight. So I guess if the four astronauts mess up something, I guess they might just make the call. NASA might just make the call to make this an automated process from here on out. But I'm not sure. Best of luck to the astronauts. I hope they don't mess up, but just interesting that, we have both kinds of systems.
After the crew does their checkouts there, then they'll set for the departure burn, our USS-2, our separation burn from ICPS, and of course we'll send it on its way, having done its job, and then the Orion will continue on to do a perigee raise burn that will allow us to raise our perigee off the Earth and to set up for TLI. As we check out our ECLIS systems and ensure that everything is working there, the crew then has a good night's sleep that is interrupted by that perigee raise burn. It's actually right in the middle of the night. Unfortunately, physics cannot be defied. We have to put the burns where they're necessary for the trajectory. So the crew will get a short nap, they'll get up, they'll do the burn, and then they'll go back to sleep again in preparation for TLI on the next day.
I want to know their schedule. Like, I would love to watch a video of kind of this sort of thing of like, okay, they do all this, they get to sleep for how many hours, and then they have to do all this, and then they get to sleep for how many hours, and then they do all this, and then, and how does the day night cycle, is there a day night cycle on a mission like this? Like, obviously, you have to have sleep wake cycles, or, I mean, there's four astronauts. Could they possibly not have alternating cycles where, 2 hour awake, 2 hour asleep, and then vice versa, and then vice versa, and then vice versa? I guess this mission's only 10 days, so I guess that would be a lot to get into in just a 10-day mission. So I guess it probably just makes sense for them to all be awake at the same time, all be asleep at the same time for a 10-day mission. But I'm curious about longer missions, future missions, and even International Space Station and Space Station missions. What is the day-night cycle, especially with like the sun, right? Because the sun, if you orbit the Earth once, it takes 90 minutes. So that's like 45 minutes of daytime and 45 minutes of nighttime. I would guess that's kind of how it breaks up. So, um, yeah, I mean, I would be really curious to know what the sleep wake cycle is for astronauts versus everyone else here on Earth.
Orion will come back down from the high Earth orbit to approximately 100 nautical miles off the surface of the Earth and perform TLI, sending the crew on the way to the moon.
That was another question I had in a past video I haven't gotten an answer to yet. Which, by the way, I am learning by discovery. That is my chosen method of learning for this channel, which is I come across something, I have a question, I don't Google it. I just let myself have a question and continue trying to process that question until I come across the answer in a video or a related, content. I just retain information more when I discover it naturally than when I just have an instant answer when I look it up. But anyways, so I'm curious why they use nautical miles versus like miles or kilometers, or like why do they use nautical? Why is that? And is that an advantage? Is that an international standard, or is that just something the American space program does and everyone else uses kilometers? I'd be interested to know. I have not come across that answer yet, though. So maybe I'll have to. If I like have a question for too long, I try to watch a video that I think will address that question.
That's going to be a very exciting day. I have to admit, I'm very much looking forward to the day where we send a crew back to the moon for the first time in a long time.
Amen.
On the way to the moon, the crew will complete a series of checkouts of the Orion spacecraft.
What's that logo? Is that the Artemis 2 logo? What's the other one I've been seeing? The half crescent with the like whoosh, whoosh. What's the So the Artemis 1 mission patch, I call those mission patches. I don't know what they're actually called. The Artemis 1 mission patch I thought I saw on a different video, and I commented and I was like, "Oh, I don't like that one as much as the Artemis 2 mission patch." Maybe the mission patch I'm talking about is just the Artemis program in general. Maybe that's the symbol I've been seeing everywhere. Anyways, that looks really cool. That's a cool mission patch. I gave NASA credit in the past for having really cool mission patches, so that's a pretty cool one. It's got all the astronauts' names on it, which is really, really neat. I wish they chose a different font. Not that I'm a graphic designer or anything. It's a little bit thin, but yeah, it looks cool.
We again want to ensure that all of our systems are working successfully, and then we have a number of test objectives, as was mentioned. It's a test flight, so we're gonna put the vehicle through its paces and check all the systems, ensuring that everything is ready to go. And then all of those checkouts will be interrupted by a lunar flyby, and it'll be very enjoyable for us to watch the crew and enjoyable for them to watch as they fly past the moon. It's going to look a little different than previous flybys, and here we've got the video going of what it's going to look like to the crew. They're going at least 5,000 nautical miles past the moon, which is much higher than previous missions have gone. And so the moon's going to look a little bit smaller. A comparison I can give you is if you held a basketball out from your hand, that's about the distance, the sight distance that the moon will appear to the crew in the window. So it's going to look a little bit smaller, since they're not going as low, but they are going further past the moon than anyone's gone before. And so I'm sure they'll be pretty excited about that.
That is both really cool and terrifying. Like, I know I watch a lot of sci-fi. In sci-fi, they would call that a slingshot. They might call it a slingshot in non-sci-fi. I don't know, but at least in sci-fi, that's a slingshot. Right? You shoot past an object of ethereal value like the moon, and then you loop around it. You basically use its gravitational pull to circle you back to your main objective. So, but it would be both cool to do that, the farthest that anyone's ever done it, 5,000 miles out. That's crazy. But I'm sure it's also terrifying because it's like if you're too far away, you don't slingshot, or at least not all the way. Like you might. This is all sci-fi bases. I don't know how realistic any of this is, to be honest with you. But like in sci-fi, like if you're too far away from an object, you might not slingshot all the way, and now you've shot left instead of back on yourself. So again, I don't know how realistic that is. I would be terrified that I could bypass the moon and not get caught in its gravitational field, and now I'm just drifting out in space endlessly. But I guess if NASA's done the calculations and they feel comfortable with what they're doing here, then more power to them, and I should probably trust them over random sci-fi TV shows.
They'll complete their observations, and as you saw in the video, half the moon is lit, half of it is in darkness, and so the crew, as they go, they'll see that transition, and I think the video we have is representative of early in the year, and so they'll complete their observations and then become on their way back home.
I would not sleep if I went to space. I don't think I could. It's too exciting. Like there's too much. I'm in space. There's too much to see. There's too much to observe. I'm sure they're doing a lot of stuff too, the astronauts. But like, I couldn't, like 10 days. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to stay awake for 10 days, but I might die of sleep exhaustion. Like I couldn't imagine like laying down, or do they lay down? I guess maybe they don't. I couldn't imagine just like closing my eyes and like being like, yeah, I'm gonna be out for the next 4 hours. Like there's just I would like sit at the window and just like look and be like, now I'm seeing the earth from this far away. Now I'm seeing the earth from this far away. Now I'm seeing the earth from this far. Now I'm seeing the moon from this close. Now I'm seeing the moon from this close. Like I would not be able to sleep. I would just be looking out the window. Like I would be glued to the window. The other thing is like stars from our perspective on Earth, basically two-dimensional. They all look equidistant. They all look like, but it's like in space, I'm sure you'd be able to tell the distances between stars. Like all of a sudden you've been launched into a three-dimensional sky. All of a sudden you can tell not everything's equidistant. Things are different distances. Things are different brightnesses. Things are different, maybe colors even. And that would just be so cool. I don't think I'd be able to focus on doing a task. I'd have to like be just like looking out into the expanse and like observing. And that's probably one of the most unfortunate parts of like the modern day space program. I feel like is we're in the stages where like you have to be doing stuff. You have to be focused. You have to be doing stuff. I'm sure they have some time they can look out the window, but like we're in the phase now where it's like everything is mission focused. Whereas like hopefully someday within my lifetime, ideally, there is some amount of leisure available for money or for purpose. Like, and you can go up into the moon and you can look at stuff and you can observe stuff and you can, and just like basically exploring with leisure. I'm going to take a trip to the moon and I'm just going to spend the whole time looking out the window, So anyways, long rant, but that would be so cool to be there. I'm just trying to like quantify in my mind what I would be doing.
We do have a series of correction burns. Lakeisha mentioned we're on a free return trajectory, but we will be slightly correcting that as our nav dispersions cause us to do those correction burns on the way home. So we'll have a few.
I don't know what
those.
half these words mean.
And as we approach the Earth, then I'll hand it over to Rick, who's our entry flight director.
Thanks, Jeff, and thanks.
Okay, so basically on the panel they have like they've been going through like each person has like they're like obviously they're over control of like a step in the process. That's obviously why they're there. But the way they have it laid out is linearly, which is great. It basically means that each panel person not only oversees a step in the process, but like a time in the process. So the first lady, she was like all about the pre stuff, all about the pre testing and the pre, and then the second lady, she was all sorry, I don't remember any of their names. The second lady, she was all about like the countdown and like the preps and then the third guy, oh he's the first guy, but the third human was all about okay, getting up there, getting into, getting, and then this guy we just heard from is like the guy who's like talking about orbiting the moon, and then this guy is talking about like coming back from it's really cool how they have it laid out in that kind of like timeline sense.
All who were able to join us this morning in person and online. So I am in charge of the entry team. So we will come on console about the time that the flight crew wakes up on landing day. We will have a short conference with Reed and Victor and Christina and Jeremy. We'll provide them updates on the weather at the landing site and any other updates on spacecraft performance from the overnight period. The crew.
Is there any amount of scrubbability of a re-entry, or does it just have to happen no matter what? Like, if they're, I'm sure they'd monitor all this before launching, but let's say a freak storm appears out of the Pacific Ocean, and it's just like, because they're landing off the coast of California, and now there's just like high winds and like it's just terrible conditions. Do they have to still they're like, okay, well, we plan to land now, so we have to land now? Or like, is there some amount of, okay, let's orbit around a few times and then we'll splash down? Like, I don't know. Is it rigidly set or is it flexible?
Crew's going to spend their morning tearing down the toilet. They're going to deconfigure the water dispenser. They're going to put away the food warmer. Basically, all the things that they set up on flight day one, they're going to put away and stow for entry.
Gotta watch some videos. I gotta watch some videos on like that. What is all the stuff they have to do and then undo as they're leaving and then re-entering? It doesn't sound like it's like anything super exciting, but it's all stuff that's like extremely vital to like functioning as human beings in a spacecraft.
Once the crew gets the cabin configured, we're going to perform that last final trajectory correction maneuver that Jeff talked about. This is going to put us on track for a bullseye landing in the Eastern Pacific off the coast of San Diego. Once that trajectory correction maneuver is complete, the flight crew are going to put their orange survival suits back on. They're going to do a leak check to ensure that they're leak tight for entry. That process is going to take about 2 hours to do for all four crew to get suited. In the meantime, while the flight...
So I still have to watch a video on spacesuits. I don't know all the different types. I, very novicely of myself, have gone into this expecting there was only one type of spacesuit. But as I learned in this last video, the part one of this video, the orange suits they wear as they like get in and everything are called survival suits. And I suspect, I do not know, but I suspect those are like compression suits and they're fire suits, and it sounds like they're also probably water suits. They're all these different things wrapped into one, but they're not spacesuits. And so they have to change out of their survival suits at some point into their spacesuits. And I want to know the difference between those kind of things. And then there's also like the jumpers they wear. They might just be wearing jumpers on this one. I don't know if they're actually going to change into like full-on spacesuits because they're not doing any amount of spacewalk or getting out of the spacecraft. So they might just change into those like, those jumpers you see them wear. But anyways, we should look at astronaut outfits, and I'll have to watch a video on that.
Flight crew are donning their suits. The ground team is going to be doing some final spacecraft configurations like configuring the backup flight software to...
Here's a question I just thought of. Do astronauts do laundry? Like, is there, like, they're not doing anything. They're in a sterile environment, but I guess they could be like sweating or because they are moving around a lot. I don't know what the temperature control is like on the inside of a spacecraft. If anything, they might be colder than warmer because space is cold and not warm. But I just thought of that. I guess there has to be some amount of change of clothes, right? I would imagine. maybe not on a 10-day trip. I don't know, but I would expect on a month-long trip or something. Astronauts will have to change clothes. I guess they probably don't have a washing machine on board. I guess they just would have to bring new pairs and then just store old pairs. But that never occurred to me until right now when I was thinking about astronauts' clothing, and I'm sure that's something someone will have to tackle at some point if they haven't already.
Perform an entry in the event of a failure of the primary flight computers.
What was he saying?
Some final spacecraft configurations like configuring the backup flight software to perform an entry in the event of a failure of the primary flight computers. Once we get to about an hour from entry interface, that's when the pace of activity is really going to pick up. The first major activity is we're going to hand down from the Deep Space Communications Network to the Tracking and Data Relay Satellite System Network. This is the
I don't know what either of those networks are. I had no idea there were different networks like that. I'm going to have to watch videos on these different kinds of things he's talking about.
first time we'll be back on TDRS since just before the translunar injection burn. So the comm system will get reconfigured about 38 minutes prior to entry interface, at which point we'll perform a comm check, and then we will start configuring the service module for disposal. We're going to position the solar arrays in a position that's favorable for separation.
For the comm checks, are they just on one frequency? Or are there multiple? Is there like one for voice and then one for systems and then one for do they have redundancy frequencies? Or is it all just like everything's on one channel? I don't know how any of that works.
We're going to perform a test firing of the crew module thrusters to ensure they're warmed up for entry.
Okay.
And then we're going to get into the proper attitude for service module separation. Separation.
Proper attitude, meaning like they want to make sure they're all happy and not sad. That's a joke, by the way. Just ignore me.
Will occur about 20 minutes before entry interface. And
Just talking about angle.
The next step will be then to maneuver the crew module into the entry interface attitude. This is to get the heat shield facing forward to take the brunt of the heat that's going to be generated on entry. Just before entry interface, we're going to perform a fire.
What a crazy, awesome, cool sight. I don't know if this is animated like all the other ones were, or if this is video from the Artemis 1. It could potentially be video from the Artemis 1. I don't know. But it looks really cool.
Firing of those crew module thrusters.
Look at all the
blues. Called
blues.
the raise burn. This is going to sweeten up.
Actually, that was something I noticed when, sorry, I'm cutting this guy off a lot specifically, but that was something I noticed when I watched the Falcon 9 launch like 2 months ago when I went down there. There's a lot of blues and greens in the fire when there's a lot of blues and greens, and then they get up to a certain point, and I don't know if it's an atmosphere thing or I guess it probably is, and then all of a sudden there's a lot of like pinks and yellows and reds, and so there's some really cool color stuff that happens in the flame of rocket launches. And I would imagine it's the same as, re-entry, if a similar phenomena happens. I don't know why that is. I'm not a scientist. I would guess it's some composition of different chemicals or different debris or different contaminants that are kind of interacting at such high velocities. But I have no idea. That's just a guess. But it is really beautiful to watch. Even this is really beautiful to watch.
Our entry flight path angle to ensure, again, that we get that bullseye landing off the coast of San Diego.
That's so cool.
So at 400,000 feet and about 1,775 nautical miles from our splashdown location, we'll hit entry interface. And that's when the heat of the atmosphere is going to start interacting with our heat shield, and we're going to create that plasma trail you see. This is a video from Artemis 1 looking out the crew module windows
it is a video.
towards the plasma trail.
Yeah,
The
that's
spacecraft
so
is going to
cool.
perform some bank maneuvers. It's going to roll right and left, and you can see that here in the video to fine-tune the landing spot. Our entry guidance flight software will take care of that for us.
Wow.
And that's all going to put us on target for that targeted splashdown, waiting for the recovery forces. Once we get to about 325 miles per hour and about 24,000 feet altitude, we're going to start deploying some of our parachutes. We'll have 2 drogue parachutes that deploy, And then they'll bring us down to about a speed of around 115 miles per hour, at which point
Okay.
our 3 orange main parachutes will deploy. And that's going to bring the flight crew down to the safe splashdown velocity of 15 miles per hour. And that will be in a location right near where the recovery forces are waiting to.
I don't know how different the parachute system is on the Artemis versus the Apollo. I know the Apollo, I think, just had the 3 parachutes. I don't think it had stages of parachutes. I could be wrong. But I was watching an interview. The first videos I did on this channel were interviews with the Apollo 8 crew. And they were talking about how there was like a crazy amount of like jolt, almost whiplash, in between different stages of parachuting. So I guess they were stages. I guess I just defeated my own point. But they were saying like when the parachutes went up, it's like slammed them like down into like the craft, and then when the parachutes disengaged, it was like free fall again, and then more parachutes slammed them back down. I'm like, that sounds really unpleasant, but I guess you'd rather that than slam into the ocean at 25,000 miles an hour.
To extract the flight crew from the spacecraft. Once the spacecraft is landed in the ocean, we'll perform a couple of other reconfigurations, and then we're going to power down the spacecraft so that I can hand over to Dan Flores, who is going to be a part of the recovery team to extract the flight crew.
All right, thanks, Rick. So again, Dan Flores,
Cool.
I am here representing the landing and recovery team. I'll walk you guys through the process of how we get to the capsule to recover both the crew and Orion back to the recovery ship. I'm going to say this is my favorite part of the mission because, like Lakeisha said, we have our friends flying around the moon. This is when we get to bring our friends back home to their families. Within 24 hours of splashdown, we're going to be positioned on the recovery ship in the Pacific Ocean, just off the coast of San Diego, which is our nominal landing site.
Okay.
The recovery ship is going to approach the landing zone, and a team of Navy divers.
Huh. I wonder what craft that is a picture of. I don't think that's the Orion, and I only say that because I was pretty sure the Orion is like reflective chrome. I don't know if burning back into the atmosphere it turns black. I guess that's a distinct possibility. But I would have thought if it was chrome going up, it would be chrome coming down. That's a really cool picture, though. I love the contrast of the yellow and the red against the black, and then also the yellow and the red against the gray-blue of the sky, ocean, and ship. That's one of those really cool looking ships that's got the like angles and stuff. I think it's for stealth. I don't really know. I'm not even sure what kind of ship that is, but we should watch some recovery effort videos at some point.
On small boats, they're going to deploy from the well deck of that ship into the open water. Just prior to splashdown, our team here at Johnson Space Center, they're going to map out where all the various elements that Rick mentioned, the drogue parachutes, forward bay cover, all the mortars that jettison from Orion, they're going to analyze where they're going to land relative to the splashdown zone. We're going to map that out and deliver that to our small boats and helicopters to ensure that they're safely away from that zone.
I wonder, so I know on the space stations they have like treadmills where they're like basically bungee corded down to the ground, and then they run on treadmills to like keep their legs active and stuff, just so they don't lose muscle mass. And not that you would lose a ton of muscle mass over 10 days. You might not lose any, I'm not sure. But you would definitely have fatigue. And I'm curious about the coming back into the atmosphere and landing part, like how much more strain it is on your body to now have gravity again and fatigue again. And I wonder how long it takes to recover from that amount of fatigue. And I'm curious, like stepping back out of the craft onto the boat and everything, if it's an ungraceful kind of you flop out because you're not used to using your legs again. That'd be interesting to learn about.
The Navy divers, they're going to be the first ones to approach Orion. And once they initiate their approach, they're going to conduct assessments of the air and the water surrounding the capsule to make sure it's safe to approach and help the crew exit the Orion.
I wonder if that will eventually be outsourced to a third party. Like I know the U.S. Navy does it now, but I kind of wouldn't be surprised if this is becoming a regular occurrence and humans are going to the moon and coming back from the moon, every so often. I kind of wouldn't be surprised if it became a recurrence thing enough that the U.S. Navy would be like, all right, this is not really a military job. This is kind of like, this needs to be its own agency that has its own boat and its own divers and its own, I don't know. This is just like forward thinking. I wonder if that's going to be a consideration ever. I'm also wondering, since SpaceX can so routinely and reliably, you know, bring back its boosters, I wonder if there will ever be a time in the future where it's in consideration to bring back humans the same way, and they basically re-enter the atmosphere in a craft, not just a capsule, but a whole craft, and it would just re-land, and they could just get off the craft where they got onto the craft back at the Space Center. I wonder if that will be a technology that will come into play ever, because it would be so much more efficient and faster, I'm sure, and less expensive. Well, maybe not less expensive, but it would be so much more efficient if they could just land back, kind of like an airplane does. They just land back at wherever and then disembark there, rather than like landing in the middle of the ocean and have to be transported all the way back,
After ensuring the area is safe, they'll open Orion's hatch, and they're going to help the astronauts from their seats into a large inflatable called the front porch, which you can see on the screen there.
Mm-hmm.
Once all 4 astronauts are on the front porch, they'll carefully drift several yards away from Orion, and they're going to be awaiting pickup from the Navy helicopters that will be deployed from the recovery vessel. 2 helicopters, they're going to rotate, picking up all 4 crew members before they return to the recovery ship within a couple of minutes of each other. Once the crew has exited the helicopters, they'll transition over to the ship's medical bay, and they're going to undergo routine post-flight checkups, and we expect to recover the crew to the medical bay within 2 hours of splashdown.
All right.
With the crew safely out of the capsule and attending to their recovery, our team's going to start on the recovering of the Orion capsule back to the recovery ship. And we're going to use procedures similar to the ones that we used for Artemis 1.
I wonder how hot the surface of that thing gets. Like, it's landing in water, which is, I'm sure, very helpful for temperature dissipation. But I still wonder, there still has to be some amount of time before they approach it and, like, touch the thing. Because I'm sure even bobbing around in the ocean, it's dissipating heat, sure, but after being, I think they said it gets as hot as, like, the surface of the sun for, like, 5 seconds or something. Like, that's, or maybe it was half the temperature of the surface. I can't really remember, but it gets hot. It gets real hot. So I'm sure there has to be some amount of time before they touch it. Because again, even in this picture, you can see only the bottom is I'm sure the bottom gets the hottest, but the rest of it's got to get hot as well. And so only the bottom is being constantly dissipated and will cool off the fastest. But I know the whole thing will submerge when it initially hits, I think, even if just a little bit. But yeah, it's got to take some time for that thing to cool off, I would imagine.
The Navy divers are going to secure a system of lines to the capsule using connection points and a pony collar that you can see around the capsule in that image. And that's going to help tow Orion inside the ship. When Orion's close to the ship, we're going to attach an additional series of lines to help stabilize the capsule as it transitions into the well decks. Sailors...
I'm a little bit surprised they don't just have like hook-on points. Like, okay, we're going to attach a rope here and a rope here. Instead of like wrapping around the whole thing. Like, even cars have tow hooks. Like, why not couldn't you do the same thing? It's just it's nothing. And the tow hooks for cars, they're not even on the cars. They're just little threaded slots where you can thread in a tow hook. And now you have something where you can tow the vehicle from. They can do the same thing. Just put threads into the ship so there's nothing like sticking out, so it's not messing with the aerodynamics. And then when they get there, they're like, all right, we just thread this bolt in here, we hook on here. Thread this bolt on the other side, hook on there. Now we can pull it, and we don't have to go, we don't have to strap the whole thing up.
Our Navy sailors are going to help manage the lines and handle the lines. They're going to pull on the lines with the assistance of NASA technicians that are going to operating key ground support equipment to help stabilize the capsule as it comes in.
That would be fun to do.
Once Orion is safely inside, we're going to start making our return back to Naval Base San Diego. And depending on our distance to shore, the Artemis II crew will either fly back to San Diego on helicopters, or they'll just stay on the ship and ride back on the ship back to San Diego.
Okay.
Once we arrive back on shore, the astronauts are going to depart back to Houston, while the NASA recovery team is going to complete our post-splashdown processing activities of Orion before it's transported back to the Kennedy Space Center.
I feel bad for I don't know if you saw it in the last shot, the lady on the end who's standing, who introduced them all. She's been standing there for like an hour. Like, why? Just go and sit down while they're talking for an hour and then come back up.
In Florida. Some of these post-operations include initial assessments of the capsule and removal of any scientific payloads that need to return back to their NASA center of origin. Before I wrap up my opening remarks, I just want to take a moment and really thank our partners from the military who support our Artemis recovery efforts and have supported NASA since early days of human spaceflight. Our joint NASA, Navy, and Air Force team, they've been training for several years together to ensure a seamless recovery of Orion and the Artemis II crew. We had a successful recovery of the uncrewed Orion during Artemis I, and we feel very confident that through our testing and our training alongside the Navy and other collaborators, we will make Artemis II just as successful.
Cool.
So thank you, and happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you all. We'll go ahead and take some questions.
All right, so I don't know if I'm going to stick around for the questions. They may be beneficial, of course, but I'm not sure how interested y'all are going to be in watching it. The other thing I understand is that, according to YouTube, most people don't stick around to watch my videos anywhere past 3 or 4 minutes, which is discouraging, but at the same time, I'm going to watch this anyways. I'm interested enough that I'm going to watch this on my own time anyways, so I might as well record it and react to it on the off chance that someday more than 15 people watch my channel. So if you have made it this far in the video, I don't know if you've ever heard of a YouTube channel called How Ridiculous. They do like trick shots. They're based out of Australia. Not even trick shots anymore. They do really cool stuff. Check them out. Not space related at all, but they have this thing they do called the 44 Club that they started way back in the early days of their channel. And it was to represent all the people who stuck around to the end of the video. And those people were like honorary members of the 44 Club. I kind of want to do something like that. I have no idea what to call it. If you're here, you get the privilege of choosing the name of the club. So if you're still here, if anyone is watching this at all, drop a name suggestion down in the comments and I'll see it. And we may just name the club the Yada Yada Club or the Moon Explorers Club. I don't know. Whatever you want it to be. Just make it respectful. And we'll just call the people who stick around the end of the video that. And thank you very much for watching. I would appreciate a like and subscribe just so I know that I'm not doing this in vain and that other people are out there. And it really goes a long way towards helping my morale. But hope you all have a great day on Earth.